And good morning, America. Good morning, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. Welcome back to the All American Book Club. I'm Eden Gordon Hill. And boy, we are in the lazy, hazy days of summer. So grab your sweet tea or your lemonade or your iced frappuccino from Starbucks and join us here as we have Elizabeth Goddard, who's returning to the All American Book Club with her second book in the series, Hidden Bay. She is a USA Today best-selling author, and we absolutely love her books. We are on very much suspense, and there's murder, there's mayhem, and there's some faith and romance also in this amazing book. So we're going to be talking this morning about Perilous Tides with Elizabeth Goddard. Welcome back to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's talk about the characters first and Perilous Tides, but let's first do this. Let's talk about Hidden Bay altogether. Let's do a little recap of the first book and what led you to the second book.
All right, wonderful. Well, I have one. Here's the first book.
Yep.
It's Storm Warning and then
One.
Perilous Tides.
Yep.
So I wanted to set a series in on the Washington coast. It's rocky and cold and windy and rainy, and a lot of people will come to storm watch or lodges to watch storms coming in. So, I just thought that would be a great idea to set a series around that. And so I bring characters to the lodge that are hiding, running or hiding from danger. And so that's kind of the premise of the whole thing. And so in Storm Warning, the first one, I have a character with amnesia, and she's there and she can't remember what happened, but she knows she's in danger, so she's hiding. And then in book 2, Perilous Tides, I have a character who's there also hiding. Her mother was killed or murdered 3 years before, and she told her to run and hide. So there she is. She's working not as a forensic artist because she doesn't want to, if somebody's searching for her, she doesn't want to draw attention to that. And then I have a former Green Beret hero that comes to her rescue. And so it's like a cold case and missing people and running from danger and all of that wrapped into one package. And I hope it was a lot of fun writing. I hope you had fun reading it.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about that. So you talk about the West Coast,
Mhm.
beautiful United States of America, and I did not realize that there are storm watchers, that people go out there and watch that. I had no idea that that was a thing. So is that something that you and your family do?
Well, we love to go to the coast, and I live like an hour
Oh,
from where I'm sitting this series on. It's in the Olympic Peninsula. And yeah, we love to, the way it's just so, it can be so violent. And I just am so fascinated with just the waves crashing. And I don't know, it just totally inspired me. And I love also that setting includes the rainforest, the temperate rainforest in the Olympic Peninsula, and there's no cell service and sometimes not even, you can't even get satellite. I know because I've been there. So, it just makes for a perfect, to me, a good way to isolate characters, running for their lives and danger. And then you bring in the setting, the weather, and the cold and the rain and just the wind. And in Storm Warning, I had a bomb cyclone, which is just kind of like a hurricane, just high winds and terrible
yes.
stuff coming in.
Yeah, no, I remember that in Storm Warning, and I really love that one. And as I've been diving into Perilous Tides, the characters of Joe and Cole and
Mhm.
how to bring them together, can you at least open up for the audience so they go pick up the book? They don't have to pre-order it, it's already
Mhm.
available. Can you
Right.
open it up, the scene, as to, Joe is going to look for her father, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden she takes the ferry to go back and go ahead, have at it.
Yes, yeah. Well, she's in hiding, so she's not supposed to leave her space, right? But her father leaves her a cryptic note, and he's her biological father that she's only just met and known for 3 years. So she's not ready to say goodbye to him, and she doesn't know what's going on. So she does. She goes across the Puget Sound to Seattle, and she misses her father. Then she gets on the ferry. She feels like somebody's watching her, but
Right.
she's paranoid already because she just spent her life looking over her shoulder. So maybe she's paranoid. Maybe someone's not following her. She doesn't know. But she gets on the ferry to cross. And it was just one of those days where it doesn't happen often, but the waves were just really crashing and the boat's rocking. And so she decides she's going to go up above, but she witnesses a murder. And so she tries to escape, but the murderer gets her. And the next thing you know, she is in a car going off of the ferry into the water, plunging into the water, and she's going to die. I'm going to die. But we do have our hero coming in who is already tracking her, trying to find her, and he's following the ferry. And so he doesn't even know it's her actually in the car, but he dives off into the Puget Sound, the cold waters, and goes down. And then they have to battle to get her out of the car. And so I had that scene in my mind and I wanted it somewhere. So I thought, well, we'll open with that.
Well, you did a good job because it took me to all the times I've ridden a ferry, whether I've had the car on there or
Right.
walked on and that's been many a times. And I sat there and thought, what a great visual. And so I was kind of going through the whole scenario as Joe was going through it. How do you do research for these books, especially? And I want to back up for a second. How did you had an Alaska series, and that's how I
hmm
met you
hmm
and fell in
Yeah.
love with your writing. So, um, are you traveling to these locations? Is that what has inspired you to kind of really bring out these characters?
As much as I can. I mean, not every place that I've written about have I traveled to. And if I can't go there physically, I try to get experts or talk to people or read books and watch YouTube. And, I just do everything I can possibly do to absorb myself in whatever the setting is because they do inspire me.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I do because I love the Pacific Northwest and I ended up living here. We moved to Washington about in 2021, and then now I live in a home that we built over on the west side of the state, not far from the coast. And I'm fortunate to get to finally live where I love to write stories and set stories. And so, it inspires me and I get to absorb all of the feelings. But if I can't, yeah, I research to death. I do more research, probably spend more time researching than I do actually writing the book.
Yeah. So as you've been doing research, what has really struck you with your characters? I've heard different authors say, and even different readers say, "Oh my gosh, I woke up praying for this book, these people." But I'm like, wait a second, they're fiction. It's a book. So what has really struck a chord with you with your characters? And also, do you pull some of your character into these characters, especially the female heroes?
I would have to say, I'm not sure that I pull myself into my characters, but I mean, as writers, we're all writing from what we know, what we've experienced in some way. But I think a lot of times my characters are all about finding their identity, who they really are, forgiveness,
Yes.
trying to, struggling through trusting people and knowing who to trust, and also where does God fit in their life and trusting God and knowing that when the storms are going crazy around you, that you can still have peace on the inside. So I think I don't really start my books with a theme in mind. I just kind of let the character let it grow organically. And I think that that's kind of, but I see the themes repeating themselves, right? So
Yeah.
that's coming
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah. So let me ask you this with you. Okay, let me say this. These are standalones. So if you went and
Mhm.
picked up Perilous Tide or Storm Warning, you would be basically good to go. But there's a third one that's going to be coming out too. So talk a little bit about the third one and basically the characters in each one leading up to it. Is there going to be an overlap? Are they all going to come back together at the end?
Yes, I write my books standalone because I know some people want to read standalone, so you can read the book without having read the first one or the second one or the third one. But for people who do love to have all the characters connect in a series, I incorporate all of that so you can have it either way. So what's happened in book 1 and 2, a character kind of emerged that I hadn't planned on, and that was Evelyn Monroe. And she's kind of in the background. She facilitates the lodge that people can come hide, and there's reasons behind that. And I also kind of tease a ghost ship in Storm Warning, just the image of a ghost ship. And so by book 3, my editor said, what's this going to be about? And I said, well, I'm thinking that I kind of want to showcase Evelyn Monroe and find out who she is, really. And then also figure out the ghost ship. And she was like, yes, I'm on board with that. So I just, it's just always an exploration for me with the books. And we hadn't anticipated these things coming up. And so, yeah, for book 3, Deadly Currents, we find out what is this ghost ship and what's behind that and who is Evelyn Monroe. I have a character in Perilous Tides, which is Detective Braden Sanders. He's the hero in book 3.
Mm.
Excuse me. And so he shows up, and then we have a brand new character coming in on scene that is the daughter of a maritime historian who was murdered, and she's trying to finish his book. So she comes to Hidden Bay to the last book. The last shipwreck that is in her book is the ghost ship, the Spectre's Bounty. So she's trying to find out all about that. And so it was so much fun. And I have to say, my editor actually said that was her favorite book in the series. So,
No, I could see why. Oh my gosh. Well, as we are focused on adventurous women here
Mhm.
at the All American Book Club for this whole month
Right?
of August, you zero in on adventurous women in all of your books, the Alaska series and the Hidden Bay series. But what are some of the character traits that you would say to the audience about these adventurous women that you want your grandchildren to kind of look up to and in today's society?
Right. Well, all of my books really are, let's say, adventure driven romantic suspense.
Ah,
So of course, my characters have to be willing. Sometimes they're not necessarily willing to dive in, but they step up to the call. They answer the call to ask the questions, to go forward and just to see the world, explore the world and not stay in their tiny little spot. They have to
right.
step out and just look at God's creation and find the answers and find justice where it needs to be found. So it's just, that's kind of like the core of what drives them all. And then, of course, if you have to climb a mountain that you've never climbed before, you got to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And those are great words to live by. I love diving into your books with you, no pun intended, with Perilous Time. I
Thank you.
absolutely love diving into it. Can you share a little bit with our audience? Obviously, you've been on the show a couple times, but for the newbies, and there are a lot of newbies, what really, how did God lead you on the journey to write? How was that
Well,
for you?
it's actually been a pretty long journey. I mean, really, I can say just my whole life, but I just felt like I was called to write. And I believe my mom, at a very early age, planted the seed because she told me that, I want to send this in to a publisher, a poem. Actually, she was going to send a poem. I think I was like 7 or 8. And I never heard anything about it. So I thought, oh, well, they must have rejected it. But years later, recently, I thought, maybe. Oh, no, I thought maybe she hadn't sent it in. But I recently thought, well, maybe they rejected it and she just didn't want to hurt my feelings and didn't tell me. But that seed, and then I was always just wanting to be a writer, but it wasn't until in my early 30s and I had my first child that I uh, resigned my job. And I thought, you know what, maybe now is time. And so I started attending conferences and it took me quite a few years. So that
Mhm.
was in 2001. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a
Right.
wonderful journey. And God's opened all the doors and, he called me, he just kept chasing me. That's a whole nother story, to the point where I would just laugh and say, oh, you haven't called me to write, but,
Can you tell
but he did.
about that? Because, I think that's such a great visual. He was chasing you because
Mhm.
he knew what was in you and making sure that it would come, that you would be able to do it, that you would glorify him through those gifts and talents. Talked about that.
Right. Yeah. It was just, like I said, inside of me. And I remember getting like a document in the mail saying, have you found your writing scripture yet? Well, yes, I had been seeing the same scripture over and over again. My heart is the pen of a ready, my heart is the pen of a ready writer. I can't remember exactly the verse and psalm, but over and over, I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm like, okay, God, are you calling me to write? So it was just a process over many years, actually.
Mhm.
Just how you'll see something over and over again, and you just feel like the Lord's talking to you. But it
Yeah.
was always in me want that desire to write. And so I remember my very first conference. I had an appointment with Diane Mills, and I wanted to ask her, am I called to write? But by the time I got there to sit down with her, I knew, it seemed ridiculous that I would fight it. Fight it so
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
and God just has opened all of the doors. I attended the conferences and everything has been his timing. My dream was really to write, let's say for trade, for Ravel, at the beginning. But, that wasn't really the plan, God's plan. And I wrote for Heartsong Present for years and then Love Inspired Suspense for many years. And in 2017, the door opened for me to submit a proposal to Ravel. And so, he gave me the dream and he
Yeah.
opened the doors. So it's just been amazing.
Have you found that he has surrounded you with the support as well? Because that is becoming an author, best-selling author, and achieving those titles. Did you ever feel like you were just alone going through, or did you really feel like you were surrounded by a support network, both family and the professional side?
Right. I totally couldn't have done this without this full support of my husband, because I did stay home and pursue this, and I didn't have a job. And there were times when we just had no money, and it was interesting because God would just open the door for me to go to the conference. It cost money to buy a plane ticket and stay in hotels and go to conferences. And so even though sometimes we were very broke, it was always about, I've got to go to the conference. And my husband was completely and totally in support of that. So he knew that it was God's calling as well. And then at the conferences, I met so many of my friends that I still have today, my writing friends. And, at the time, none of us were published, and now we're all published. And, we talk every day, we support each other still. And because I don't care if it's your first book or your 15th or your 50th book, there's always that fear that the next one is going to be the flop.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're always insecure. So, we just need each other to lift each other up when we're having a bad day or get a bad review. So yes, surrounding yourself with other writers and people in your life who can always encourage you it's the number one thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you were talking through the phases that you have gone through in your writing career, I kept thinking of Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote, and her sitting
Oh,
at the at her typewriter and writing all of her manuscripts and everything that she was working on for her books. And I love the show Murder She Wrote, but that has always stuck with me. Just because yes, it was all fictional, but what you guys do is you are impacting, you are giving an escape for those who are reading your books. You are giving an opportunity for those to say, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and have my downtime right now. And you
mhm.
find adventure, you find faith, you find support. And that's what I absolutely love about the book publishing house that you are under, and a lot of the authors that come there, including yours, because you're able to lend that to our today's culture. And it's for just about all ages, if you will, teenagers
Right.
on through 110. People are going to enjoy these books, but they're also going to take away something that's inspiring. Um,
Right. A spiritual nugget or some sort of truth. And even though
yeah,
it's fiction, it is still truth. I mean, a lot the Christian authors usually try to put truth in their
yeah,
story, some sort
they
of
do.
truth.
They do. Absolutely. So, on a fun note, we'll wrap with just a minute left. Let's tell people about how they can find you and I over on Instagram having a heyday with all of the different things that we do over there. Talk a little bit about your audience over there and where my audience can get involved with you.
I believe it's Elizabeth Goddard author is my
Author.
Instagram handle. And yeah, I have a lot of fun over there. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and all of the places. But the easiest way to actually find me is to go to my website, elizabethgoddard.com.
Mhm.
And I have an amazing website my designer created with live action crashing waves to represent Hidden Bay. So the Hidden Bay. And so with each series, the plan is to have another image that is kind of a live action image. And so that's my next series is going to be Mercy Ridge, and it's set in the Northern Cascades. But back to Instagram, you can click on I have all the icons at the top of my website. So it's easy to click on over there. But yeah, I have fun. And right now I'm doing a pre-order giveaway that you can go find on my Instagram. You can get a book and an Amazon gift card. And if you pre-order Perilous Tides, you can get a bookmark and this beautiful sticker. There
Oh,
and
I love the verse. That's
yeah,
great. He
yeah,
leads
I love it with the
me
verse.
still.
He leads me beside still waters.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, Elizabeth Goddard, thank you so much for being here at the All American Book Club. Okay, go get Perilous Tides for those who are watching on YouTube, and for those who are listening in, just go do yourself a favor and go do the pre-order for the next one coming out in February.
Sure.
And do yourself a favor and just go order all of Elizabeth's books, and then you'll be set to go. So how does that sound? Perfect
That's
for
great.
the
I'm on board with that. Thank you so much, Ethan.
summer. Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
And for all of those who are tuning in, stay tuned. We'll be right back for our next segment.